Hey, what's up music producers? In this video, I want to show you some really useful vocal production tips when you're working in Ableton Live, and everything that we're going to do is using stock plugins. This video in particular covers more pop or R&B style vocal chains, and will probably feature a few things you've never tried before. You can also download everything that you see in the video and really all of my videos using the link down below in the description. I always create a ton of presets, MIDI packs, and samples with my Patreon community. There's also some extremely talented producers that are part of that community, and you can even promote your own music there. It's a very supportive place, so feel free to check it out. Now, obviously, with every vocal chain, the EQ and compression is going to depend on the original sound of your recording, where you want your compression threshold to be at, since some recordings have more or less headroom than others, how the tone of your voice or the vocalist you're recording, what it sounds like, the microphone you're using, all those things. So, and with everything with audio engineering, the context of the music definitely matters, right? But without wasting any more time, I think a lot of these techniques are going to help you. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's first take a listen to just the dry vocal recording and see what it sounds like.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
So her voice kind of reminds me of sort of a SZA kind of vibe, sort of R&B. And one of the things I noticed with this sound, especially when you listen to songs like Snooze by SZA, is it has a very reverb, kind of heavy, reflective, kind of almost aquatic kind of sound. And it's a funny word, I know, but I just kind of use that for something that's reflective and kind of has that sort of bathroom effect. And here I've got this R&B reflective vocal, and I'll turn this on.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
So there is a gain decrease that's happening. You'll notice the dry is a lot louder.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
I just tend to do that in my vocal chains because I know I can always just turn the volume up. So there's some gain reduction obviously happening in it. But you know, the main thing with this sound is doing the tuning first. And you'll notice that if I just turn all of these off and go and use auto shift, this is new to Ableton Live, or relatively new. You can see here I have the smooth kind of quicker. Like usually when you go above 100 milliseconds, the tuning will be a little more not glitchy, but like won't have those artifacts where it's sort of cutting the notes as much, that sort of T-Pain Travis Scott effect. But when you get closer, like below 50 milliseconds, you're gonna get faster. But you also have this strength thing right here, and I turn that down so you can kind of fine tune it. This is set to the A minor scale, and make sure you have the right scale, right? That's an important thing as well. But once you have that in place, we're just doing some EQ. Again, these things are going to vary based on your recording, but sometimes I like to use the glue compressor instead of the regular compressor because I find this thing sounds really good when you hit it kind of hard. So here again is the dry recording.
I'm in silence, lost in my head. I'm in silence, lost in my head.
So there is a gain reduction, but and of course you could just turn the makeup gain up here. But you'll notice that this is definitely tuning her voice in kind of a nice way. And we're cleaning up some of the mid or low mid frequencies in the bass area. But now here comes the interesting part. So when I turn this thing on, I want you to pay attention, especially if you're on headphones. If you're on laptop speakers, you might not notice it as much, but check out what happens when we turn this part of the chain on.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
We'll try it again.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
So there is a chorus effect that's happening. You can see right here these settings. And of course, you can always download these chains. I always link them down below so you can just easily drag and drop them into your session. But the second thing, besides just parallel with a chorus, is, it's on ensemble mode, by the way, is the reverb. So the reverb, these settings are really interesting because you can see it's got this decay is very, very short. And I have the reflect and the diffuse all the way up. I'm also cleaning up some of the lows on it as well. And I'm using this as sort of a stereoizer. So you'll notice when I turn this on,
I'm in silence, I'm in silence.
the vocal immediately became more stereoized. And that's because this is basically creating that stereo image using the reverb, like a short reverb. So that's actually the part of the parallel chain that's creating that effect. And then you can just dial it into taste. If I turn it all the way up, you can hear it adds quite a lot. And then I'm hitting it with saturator afterwards. And these settings, they look a little ridiculous. I know I'll probably get some angry comments, but I do turn the drive all the way up because the threshold or it was just a low sound. So I turn the drive all the way up and I'm kind of really beefing it up with this thing on. And then I turn the output down. And sometimes I do this, you know, it might look ridiculous to have the drive all the way up like that, but it just sounds good. And I'm managing the volume increase by turning the output down. So, you know, I know sometimes people play around with saturator and they're afraid to turn the drive up because the volume is increasing really quickly. But that's why you have this, this makeup gain or this output knob right here to, you know, handle the gain structure, handle your gain staging, I guess I should call it. So yeah. And it adds a whole lot. And then we go here and I'm just doing a little more EQ after the audio effect chain. A lot of times I do this, by the way, because like if you do parallel chains, like you do a parallel chorus and a parallel reverb and a parallel delay, you might actually want to EQ after that because you're changing the tonal balance of your vocal sound. And it might sound a little bit, you know, I don't know, maybe nerdy to do, but it's good to do an EQ kind of after your audio effect rack because there's a lot of parallel stuff you've just added into the mix. So I have a better tonal balance using this thing. And then we add on the reverb. And you can check out the reverb here. This is obviously a longer decay reverb. And you'll notice the diffuse is down somewhat and the reflect is up. And a lot of the diffusion is also, I'm just taking out most of the low end of the diffusion. And this is a key too. I covered this in a previous video, but you'll notice I'm saturating that reverb because it creates a nice sound. And then I'm actually using a ducking compression where it's receiving the dry vocal sound and ducking out the reverb when she sings. And what this tends to do is create a clearer sound. And I see a lot of people that use auto release when they do it. You don't necessarily have to use auto release. You might want it to be a little more time based, and that's what I'm doing here. So the release is something you could play with. A safe bet is auto release, but it could also make the vocal flood in a little bit unnaturally. So sometimes I turn off auto release and I go for a millisecond timing that sounds a little more natural. It's getting the reverb out of the way when she's singing, but it's not flooding it back in an unnatural way. And so now we have some reverb. I'm just going to turn the reverb off, turn it back on.
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you, yourself.
And you'll notice how that dark hall reverb, I've taken the dark hall preset and then tweaked it. It's more reflective and it's got some saturation on it. And that has a cool effect on reverb sounds. It kind of beefs them up and changes them in a better way. And yeah, and the compression is helping get that reverb out of the way so it's not obscuring her voice too much.
I'm in silence, lost in my head.
So you can see the compression acting on the reverb. I'll just solo the reverb. And you can hear it in action right there, right? So
I'm in silence, lost in my head, my mind, you're talking about you.
You can download this chain down below if you want to give it a try and just drag and drop it in, or you can build it yourself. And if you have any comments or questions, just leave them down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have fun making music.